Hello, my lovelies. Thank you for joining me today for Mind Body Monday. And my name is Casandra MacAlan. My mission statement is to support people who are ready to maximize their mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual healing so that they can transform their lives from pain and limitation to lasting freedom and thriving health. So today we're going to talk about shielding. When I spoke last week about cords and how to cut them, a number of people asked about shielding, so I thought I'd talk about that today. So the first question is, what is a shield? So a shield is an energetic boundary and an energetic protection system that you can place deliberately around your physical body to protect you from negative energy or negative situations, and also to keep you from courting other people or being courted. Now, a shield is something that we actually naturally have. Just like we have skin to our physical body, we have a shield that we generally run. But most people don't recognize that they have this, and as such, they don't know how to strengthen it, to care for it, and to make it something that really can protect them from feeling weakened or drained or overwhelmed by individuals and situations in their lives. So I want you to think of the fact that you know that you have a mental body, an emotional body, a physical body. Well, you also have an energetic body. And all of these things have to be taken care of. You take care of your mind by paying attention to what you allow to reside in there, not focusing on thoughts that lead to pain and suffering. You take care of your emotional body by really taking time to sit with your feelings and to not stuff them down in the thought that they would go away when really they just wait to arise later and oftentimes overwhelm us. Of course, you know how to take care of your physical body. So our energetic body may sound something that seems perhaps metaphysical in nature, but I think everybody generally understands that we all have energy. In traditional Chinese medicine, which I have a background in, we would say that a body without qi, which stands for energy, is a body without life. Other terms for energy might be ki or ka, prana or gon, auric. There's a number of different terms for energy that go back to our history and Sanskrit teachings and writings in many languages in many different cultures. So when you think about energy, to make it seem less woo-hooey perhaps, I want you to realize that you probably talk about it quite a lot. You probably think to yourself or say to somebody, I just don't have energy for this today. And that's a way that you are acknowledging that that vibrance, that force that resides within you may be low. You also might think to yourself or say to somebody, I love their energy. And you know that that means that the energy that you resonate with and the energy that that person is projecting is something that makes you feel good to be around. Have you ever met somebody that you initially just immediately knew you were going to like? And you didn't know anything about them? Well, you were sensing, perhaps unknowingly, their energy. And the same way goes to meeting somebody and realizing you didn't like their energy. You didn't like to be around them. So you realize that we all have energy bodies, we all project energy, and we all receive energy. Of course, some people are more empathic or more attuned or intuitive than others have generally trained themselves to be. And for those people, being around others may be even harder to be around and harder to accept, especially if they're not shielded. I think of introversion as really oftentimes someone who doesn't know how to shield and doesn't know how to replenish their own energy. So they generally feel very drained when they're around people, especially if it's for a length of time where there's a lot of stuff going on. So if you consider yourself an introvert, which I, believe it or not, am, you may find that you can enjoy things you thought you might never be able to by learning how to shield. So let's begin. So I like, when I work with my clients, to help them find a shield that fits them specifically. So the first thing I would ask you to ask yourself is, do you like fantasy? Do you like science fiction? So if you are a fantasy lover or a sci-fi lover and you enjoy movies like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, then we're going to begin with you. So let's say you love science fiction. Well, I want you to imagine that someone is shooting a laser at you. What would you put up in order to repel that, in order to keep it from harming you, keep it from touching you? What would that look like? How big would it be? What color would it be? What would it appear like if a beam struck it? How would it rebuff it, repulse it? So for somebody that loves sci-fi, you can kind of imagine a shield that would work for you based on these precepts, something you may have seen in a sci-fi movie. So let's say you're like me and you're somebody who loves fantasy. You might imagine if you were Gandalf and you had your staff, and you know when he slams it into the ground that immediately he is surrounded by what appears to be an orb of white light. Well, that's a beautiful shield. So if you take a moment and you think of a fantasy movie or a novel that you love, imagine someone, a character that you've watched or read, having to shield against a blast of energy that would harm them. What would their shield look like? What would yours look like? What color would it be? How thick would it be? How would it change its shape? These are all things that you can meditate on or fantasize on and come up with something that works specifically and uniquely for you. So I will tell you that my shield I got from reading a book years ago that had nothing to do with metaphysics or energetics. It was simply a book about a woman who was an empath. And she was surrounded by people that were able to telepathically and empathically project negative energy. So she had to develop a shield. And the shield that she developed was made of shifting beams of gold and silver light that moved so quickly that nothing of a lower vibration, which would be something like blame, shame, guilt, harm, anything that we would think of as would react negatively to our system, nothing with a lower vibration could get in this swiftly moving beams of light that had just microscopic cracks in it at barest minimum moments. And that's where the positive energy and energy of a higher vibration, like agape, which is unconditional love, or peace, or joy, or centeredness, that energy could flow in and flow out. So I chose this because it really resonated with me and I could imagine it in my mind's eye. Now, let's say that you are someone who doesn't think that they imagine things very well or doesn't like sci-fi or fantasy. Then for you, what I would recommend is to imagine yourself as the yolk of an egg. So if you can see an egg and you imagine that there's this orange yolk in the center, and then there's all this white around it. Imagine yourself as that yolk, and imagine this white around it to be any color that you like, any color that resonates with you. So if you're in a safe place where you can close your eyes for a moment, and you've resonated to any of the examples I've given you, then I want you to ask yourself, what color is your shield? And you probably immediately know. Maybe it's gold or pink or blue or green or white or silver or iridescent or opalescent. And honestly, whatever color you choose, those all have meanings too. So that's something that you can research and can be very exciting. For instance, as an example, if you chose pink, that could mean that you resonate with a shield that is really based on love. If you chose green, one that is based on healing. If you chose silver, one is based that is the connection between you and source and mother and the earth. Gold, perhaps a connection with father and sky and the sun. So if you don't think of something right now during this live, don't worry about it. The next time you imagine yourself wanting to push off someone that is draining, then think about what it is that could appear around you. And the around you is an important fact. So we want to think of our shields as being at least arm's length in front of us, besides us, behind us, above us, and below us. So we are in the center of that energy. So I hope that makes sense. And now that you've had some ideas of how to create a shield, when and why would you want to use it, and when and why would you want to put it into effect? So for some people who spend an entire day around other people, and perhaps in jobs that might be draining, I would recommend that you shield your system before you leave your home in the morning. That you think of locking your door behind you as locking your shield around you. And just like your door stays locked until you unlock it, your shield stays in place without any active thought maintaining it until you decide, for whatever reason, to let it down. Now, perhaps you're someone who isn't around people a lot, or the people that you're around or the situation that you're in is one that is peaceful, and you are not easily overwhelmed or drained in your day-to-day life. Then for you, perhaps you just may want to shield during specific times. Maybe you're on the phone with somebody and this person is making you more and more tired the longer you have to listen to them. Well, the first thing I would do is I would shield, and I would just pop it out. Just imagine with your thoughts, it poof comes into being around you. Whatever color, whatever shape, whatever it is you imagine. And you acknowledge that nothing comes in this shield but love, light, and whatever is healing and holding for your system. You might also add initially that whatever lessons that are in your greatest and highest good are allowed to come through. But perhaps on a day where I do not want any more lessons, I just want more blessings, I might not even make that determination. I may simply say nothing but love or light comes in, nothing but love or light comes out, especially if I'm feeling challenged. Maybe I feel like I'm suffering, or I'm vulnerable, or I'm feeling triggered by some individual or situation around me. In that case, nothing but love or light comes in, nothing but love or light goes out. So I hope that is helpful. And I will end with this kind of correlating to courting. Your shields are going to pick up stuff. They're going to pick up gunk. You know, when you drive around in your car, stuff splatters on the sides of your car. When you walk around, you get mud on the cuffs of your pants. Shields pick up stuff. So you do want to clean this shield. You do want to imagine that you either make it self-cleaning or it cleans when you shower. I like to imagine shower being a wall of bright white light that cleanses my mental, emotional, physical, and energetic being. Water is very powerful, right? So it can do that. But perhaps for you, you enjoy earthing. So you might want to, when you get home from work, immediately take your shoes off and put your feet on something living, on some grass or some dirt. And then imagine anything that attached itself to you during the day just falling off and being absorbed and transmuted into love and light by Mother Earth. Perhaps you may lay beneath the stars and imagine Creator and the sky cleansing you of anything that is not in your greatest or highest good. So definitely either make it self-cleaning or imagine how you would clean it, how it would need to be cleaned based on the way you developed it. So I hope that this helps. I think everyone needs to shield. And I think that if you are tired, drained, overwhelmed, feeling emotions of someone else, you are not shielding. And I guess one last thought that comes to me is the awareness that you've heard the phrase that you are the people that you are around, right? That often has to do with the fact that we pick up energy from our loved ones. We tend to combine resonances. So if you're in a relationship with someone who you dearly love, but maybe working some energy that is not something you want to take on, it's okay to shield around them. That is not cutting them off from your love. That is protecting your energy system so you can then present more of what would help them heal rather than just resonate with whatever gunk they're going through. And if you want to hear more about that, you can watch the video I put out there about the difference between sympathy and compassion. So I could keep talking, but it's only 15 minutes. So I will check the comments and see if there's anything I can answer for you personally. Juliana said you keep freezing. Well, Juliana, I hope that if you get out and come back in, that you will be able to see it full stream. But I will tell you, I did have a hard time getting onto Facebook today. So I think Facebook's being a thing today. Randall said, seems normal to me. All right, well, that's good. Hopefully everybody's not experiencing that. Emily said, this might be a weird question, but do you have advice on how to shield from your own thoughts or energy? Sometimes I'm angry about something and I want to feel it so I can move through it, but I don't want to impact the rest of my day or other thoughts I'm having. That's a really beautiful question. Very profound, very next level. No surprise that you are in a program with me, or have been in a program with me. So I would say you've tapped on a couple of points. One would be go back to the nothing comes in and out but love or light. So reminding yourself that even when you're in a feeling space that is something that is not feeling good to you, you don't need to project it outwards. So that's one. Two would be, how do you move through it? Well, one of my recommendations is asking yourself when you feel that you perhaps are ruminating on thoughts that are increasing that frustration, irritation, anger, depression. You ask yourself one question. What's the best that could happen? So you're frustrated, you're irritated, something is annoying you. Okay, you're worried, you're stressed, maybe you're anxious. What's the best that could happen? When you do that, when you ask yourself a question like that, it helps you shift from focusing on what the worst is and how bad you feel or how upset you are or how victimized or how vulnerable or how suffering, which we all do all day long every day, right? Into a space where you are now releasing those fears, those anxieties, those frustrations, and instead focusing on what it is you want. And like we've talked about before, we need to not lay fear pavers for a path we don't want to walk on. Before you know it, you might have walked out on those angry thoughts and in your mind be building structures that you don't want to live in. So instead, take steps back and perhaps ask yourself, what's the best thing that could happen out of this? And let your mind be used for good purposes and good intent. Because as we know, I can't even think of the number right now, but something like 80,000 thoughts that we think a day are negative. Could even be more than that. So it's so easy to think negative thoughts, and we don't want to stuff them. We do want to feel them so we can move through them. But you're right, we don't want to ruminate in them. So I hope that helped. Randall said, good question. I assume you mean Emily's. Joan said, my shield is shiny silver. I love that. So I'm glad you mentioned that because I do want to add one thing that I forgot to say. So thank you, Joan. When we think of a shield, we don't want it to think of it as being impervious. So the reason your comment made me think of that is when I think of a shiny silver shield, I think of something that maybe my stepfather, who is a world-renowned sword fighter, might be holding up himself, right? And that would be something that would be impervious. He wouldn't want any strikes to get through it. Well, in reality, when we're thinking of an energetic shield, we don't want to make it impervious. We want our love, our light to flow through, and we want love and light, peace, contentment, etc., and sometimes even those lessons that are in greatest and highest good to also come through. So if you created a shield that is impermeable, then take a moment and let it resonate at a high enough vibration that the only thing that comes in is love and light, and the only thing that comes out is love and light, or whatever you want to add. But make sure it's not a steel box, because we don't want to trap ourselves inside and trap everyone else outside, because then we're not getting opportunities to enjoy the energy, the love, and the oneness of everyone around us. Janice said, very helpful. Thank you, Cass. Emily said, thank you. Jill said, agree. So I hope this has helped you today. I think sometimes when I talk about things like courting and shielding, that maybe these are things that are obvious. And then I realize, no, they're probably only obvious to people like myself who've like studied this for 20 odd years, right? So I really appreciate when you guys leave me comments that lead me to think further on things that I would never even think to talk about. It really helps me come up with topics for you all. So I hope today was good. I hope that you leave with a way of protecting your energy from being drained. And I hope that you remember to clean that shield and to let in everything that will help you be whole and healed, and let out everything that is what you want to present to the world. And I hope you feel loved wherever you are, and know that I love you, and that you take care of yourself for me. Okay? Bye.